Welcome back, viewers. You're watching NewsX and I'm Vaishali Kohli. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will attend the 3rd India-Nordic Summit in Oslo today, with discussions set to focus on expanding India's strategic engagement with Nordic nations across technology, renewable energy, defense, sustainability and trade. According to the Ministry of External Affairs, the summit will bring together Prime Minister Modi and Nordic leaders, including Norway's Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Store, Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, Finland's Prime Minister Petteri Orpo, Iceland's Prime Minister Kristrún Frostadóttir, and Sweden's Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson. The summit builds on earlier India-Nordic engagements held in Stockholm in 2018 and Copenhagen in 2022, and is expected to add greater strategic depth to India's partnership with the Nordic region. Let's take a look at the GDP of the Nordic nations and also their bilateral trade with India. Let me show you that, viewers, on the big screen. Now let's just talk about India's Nordic Summit. What are the GDPs of these nations? Sweden, $760 billion. Norway, $599 billion. Denmark at a $504 billion. Finland is $338 billion. Let's talk about Iceland now, $25 billion. And combined Nordic GDP is 2.2 to 2.5 trillion dollars. These are figures as of 2024 to 2025. So these are, of course, the GDPs that we're discussing, and we've given you a combined Nordic GDP as well. These are the GDPs, and we're discussing the India-Nordic Summit. Let's talk about the total trade of India-Sweden. Now we're talking about India-Sweden bilateral trade. The total trade is $7 billion. India's exports to Sweden, $2.5 billion. Sweden's exports to India, $4.5 billion. So that's the bilateral trade between India and Sweden. Can we have the next slide? These are, of course, viewers, figures between 2024 and 2025. So the total trade is at a whopping figure of $7 billion. Now the India-Denmark bilateral trade, let's talk about the total trade, which is at a $5.3 billion. India's exports to Denmark at $2.71 billion, and Denmark's exports to India $2.52 billion. Again, the figures are from 2024 to 2025. This is the India-Denmark bilateral trade, and the previous figure was at a $7 billion. Now we're looking at a $5.3 billion. Let's talk about now the India-Norway bilateral trade. The total trade is at a $2 billion. India's exports to Norway is at a $0.63 billion, and Norway's exports to India is at a $0.42 billion. And these are figures, as we discussed, from 2024 to the year 2025. Let's talk about India and Finland now. The total trade between the two countries is $3 billion. India's exports to Finland, $0.60 billion, and Finland's exports to India is at a $1 billion. So these figures, of course, are lower than the previous ones that we were discussing. That is India, Finland, for you viewers. The total trade at $3 billion. Let's talk about India and Iceland now. The total trade is $0.2 billion, again a very lower considerable figure as compared to the previous ones. India's exports to Iceland are just $0.15 billion when you compare it to the other nations, and Iceland's exports to India is $0.05 billion. So that's, of course, all of these figures that we've got for you on NewsX to get you a better comprehensive understanding. Joining me for more on this is Dr. Sharad Kohli. He's a senior economist. Dr. Kohli, welcome. And we've, of course, shared all of these figures. I want to understand from you, how do you see the India-Nordic Summit and, of course, all of the figures that we've discussed with our viewers?
Good afternoon, Vaishali, to you and the viewers. I think the possibilities are tremendous. If you look at these numbers, the total population I was seeing in the Nordic region is probably, that of Delhi. Well, about 28 million people, which is about 2.8 crore people. If you look at population of Delhi and NCR, you might find the population exceeding that. So they're not very densely populated markets because they are very, very cold zones, especially in winters. A larger part of Nordic region remains inaccessible. The temperature goes well below minus 20, 25. It can be very, very, difficult to survive. But as far as the trade possibilities are concerned, I think they are tremendous because we have been exporting to them generic medicines, and not many people know that a lot of our IT services are also being supplied to the Nordic region. I mean, some food items, generic medicine, pharmaceutical vaccines. I remember during COVID, our country exported a lot of vaccines to this region, and I think for that region, they have some exclusive production capabilities in terms of machinery and other things. Where India is a huge market, India with 1.4 billion people, for these Nordic countries, it's a big market. And now with the changed geopolitical scenario, Vaishali, where trade barriers are being put by the US, a lot of these Nordic countries were exporting earlier to US without tariffs. Now, of course, with tariffs being there, their exports to US are not as attractive as they used to be. So obviously, they are looking at alternate markets. And we should also not forget, Vaishali, that these Nordic countries have been under threat from Russia, because Russia, time and again, because Nordic countries, most of them are part of NATO and the European Union, so they have been, under threat from Russia, because Russia has been, moving around its military equipment around the Scandinavian peninsula. But then, so these countries, they are looking to revive their economies. So the threat from Russia and other stuff has affected their countries and their economies. Their economies are not growing at the way they would have wanted to. So they are looking for alternate markets, and India is an emerging superpower. We all know that in terms of economy. So I think India can provide that market which these Nordic countries like Sweden, Denmark, Iceland, Finland, they are looking for. At one point of time, I remember from Finland, Nokia belongs to Finland, and Nokia had a huge presence in India. Even today, Nokia is engaged in back-end mobile equipment and other stuff. It's not selling mobile phones as much. But then the potential is tremendous, and I think this visit of the Prime Minister will help in taking these relations to the next level. And Prime Minister, whenever he goes, his main objective is that investments come into India and bilateral trade reaches the next level. To my mind, I'm sure your research team has done its homework, but to my team tells me that the total bilateral trade between India and the Nordic countries stands at between 18 to $22 billion, depending on exchange rate fluctuations. So possibilities are tremendous, and I'm sure this visit will help the bilateral relations and the trade being taken to the next level, Vaishali.
All right. I do have Aditya Vadhavan joining me with more details. Aditya, what more can you tell us on this?
Absolutely, Vaishali. You can see, there have been several business deals that have been signed between Norway and India. And definitely, and you can see, it is a part of an outreach of the Nordic outreach. So, definitely the diplomatic relations between India and Norway have been excellent.
All right, we seem to have lost the connection there. Dr. Kohli, I'll just come back to you. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is holding a bilateral meeting with Kristian Mojol Frostadóttir, Prime Minister of Iceland. And now, Dr. Kohli, I wanted to, of course, ask you that, we talk about these international partnership agreements, but the fact is that the implementation also is an important aspect. Now, do you think that this summit will produce measurable outcomes, or perhaps is it a diplomatic statement, because implementation is key here?
No, I think the Government of India, Prime Minister's Office and Ministry of Commerce, whenever Prime Minister visits, I think not many people know, that there is a follow-up team from the PMO in coordination with the Ministry of Commerce who make sure that these agreements, these pacts, these deals, and these understandings and arrangements, they are put into action. So it's not just a discussion which is you just sign a document on paper and then thereafter nothing happens. No, I don't think that's the case. There's a proper team. In fact, when we succeeded in materializing the bilateral trade agreement with Australia, UAE, so many countries in the past, European Union as such. So that has been a result of, because there was a meeting which was held, followed by meeting of the External Affairs Minister or Minister of Commerce, and then it culminated into a VTA. So there is a proper follow-up mechanism, Vaishali, which I would like to inform the viewers that this is not just a photo op, this is not just a dialogue or probably just another a goodwill kind of a visit. No, Prime Minister believes in results, and he makes sure and he continues to make the effort until the results are achieved. So this will be followed by very, very kinetic interactions between the Ministry of Commerce and the relevant departments of these countries. So and they will not be addressed till this is actually implemented on the ground, Vaishali.
Absolutely, Dr. Kohli. I just wanted to bring in the implementation bit for the clarity of our viewers, and you've, of course, as always, given us a complete broad picture. Thank you so much for joining me on the broadcast. And European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has once again called for a comprehensive investment agreement between India and the European Union, describing the pact as the missing piece of the puzzle in the two economies' cooperation plans. Von der Leyen emphasized the need to deepen bilateral economic ties. This renewed push comes as both sides look to boost trade and investment linkages. Aditya Vadhavan is joining me with more details. Aditya, what can you tell us? All right, we're going to try and re-establish that connection, viewers. But of course, the latest coming in is that European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has once again called for a comprehensive investment agreement between India and the European Union, describing the pact as the missing piece of the puzzle in the two economies' cooperation plans. Von der Leyen emphasized the need to deepen bilateral economic ties. Former Uttarakhand Chief Minister and senior BJP leader Major General Bhuvan Chandra Khanduri has passed away on Tuesday at Max Hospital in Dehradun after a prolonged illness. PM Modi has also condoled his death, noting, and I quote, "I'm deeply saddened by the passing of former Chief Minister of Uttarakhand, Major General Bhuvan Chandra Khanduri ji. From the armed forces to the political arena, he made invaluable contributions for which he will always be remembered. He remained forever dedicated to the development of Uttarakhand, which was clearly evident during his tenure as Chief Minister. His term as a Union Minister is also inspiring to everyone. He made tireless efforts continuously for the betterment of connectivity across the country. In this hour of grief, my condolences are with his family and supporters." A former army officer who transitioned into politics, General Khanduri served 2 terms as the Chief Minister of Uttarakhand, steering the state's administration. Sanjay Srivastav is joining me with more details. Sanjay, what can you tell us about this?
भुवन चंद्र खंडूरी एक ऐसी शख्सियत है जिन्होंने उत्तराखंड को एक नई पहचान दी। जब इन केंद्र में मंत्री बने तो जो फौज का वोट था उसको साधने के हिसाब से भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने बड़ा निर्णय लिया था। कहते हैं कि उत्तराखंड में हर परिवार से एक आदमी फौज में है, तो उस उद्देश्य को लेकर के इनको एक एक्सपेरिमेंट के तहत लिया गया था। लेकिन बाद में जैसे जैसे समय बीता, इन्होंने अपने काम से प्रूव किया कि ये फौज के साथ साथ अच्छे पॉलिटिशियन हैं। ये जो चतुर्भुज योजना आई वो इन्हीं की देन थी। जो कनेक्टिविटी, सड़कों का जाल बिछने की तैयारी है, वो इन्होंने शुरू की थी। और आज वो पूरे हिंदुस्तान में कोने कोने जो एक्सप्रेस वे या चौड़ी चौड़ी सड़कें जा रही है, उसकी शुरुआत भुवन चंद्र खंडूरी ने की थी। उनके कामों को देखते हुए जब राज्य में 2007 में चुनाव हुआ, तो चुनाव के बाद भारतीय जनता पार्टी जीत के आई और जीतने के बाद उनको मुख्यमंत्री के चयन को लेकर के कई नाम सामने थे, लेकिन नेतृत्व ने भुवन चंद खंडूरी को नेतृत्व सौंपा और 2007 में इनको मुख्यमंत्री बनाया गया। एक ईमानदार छवि को सामने रख करके भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने इनको मुख्यमंत्री बनाया था, जिसे इन्होंने साबित किया। और अपने दौर में इन्होंने पहाड़ों पे जो विकास किया वो आज भी लोग याद करते हैं। आज वह दिन है, पूरा प्रदेश इस बात को लेकर के चिंतित है कि जिस ईमानदारी की नींव इन्होंने रखी थी, अब आगे कौन बढ़ाएगा।
जी शुक्रिया हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए। एंड नाउ ऑफ कोर्स इन अ लेटेस्ट अपडेट